9 o'clock. We're at PSTA headquarters. I'd like to call this meeting of the Legislative Committee to order. And our first call to action is public comment.
Hello, public.
Hi. Howdy. No public in the room. We'll move on to action items. 3A. The meeting minutes from August the 2nd. Do I have a motion to accept?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Those meeting minutes are approved. And then we move to the 2018 federal priorities. Brad?
Yes. Good morning. So this is the main reason, the main action item for today's agenda to recommend to the PSTA board, just like we did last month. This committee recommended to the board the state priorities that will comprise our state legislative agenda. Now this month we hope to do the same for a federal agenda. At your places is a paper copy of the legislative agenda as we drafted with our friends from Van Scoyoc. The number one priority that we're recommending is fairly obvious. It would be to have the federal government continue to support the funding stream that our Central Avenue BRT will be funded out of, the Capital Investment Grant Program. And Harry, who was on the phone, can give us the latest update on that, but it's, I think, tentatively looking positive, but we'll need a lot of support from everybody to keep that alive, and then you can see down the list. Basically, from there, the one policy item is number 3, and that would be to have the federal government recognize rides on TNCs and they recognize some of the cab rides, some of them they don't recognize, connecting to transit, just like they would if it was in a bus, but they don't count them now, and so that would be the policy recommendation. So Harry, do you want to give us an update on where things stand with the Capital Investment Grant Program or anything else related to our proposed priorities?
Sure. So as we've talked about at the last meeting, as you know, the President recommended not providing funding for capital investment grants. All they would do in his budget request is finish out the federal funding grant agreements that they had in place, but not initiate any new projects, which would be problematic for projects like the Central Avenue BRT. The House, in marking up its appropriations bill back in July, continued the capital grants programs, including the Small Starts program, and would allow for funding. It didn't specify what the list of projects was because the administration didn't submit a list of projects this year, but it would provide enough money to fund what we expect is the list of projects that are in place, the projects that have been approved by the FTA and could move forward with funding. And that's important because that clears the backlog so that when your project is submitted, I guess Brad is still on schedule to be submitted at the end of this week, there would be, the goal is to provide funding in 18 to finish out projects in the 18 cycle and have you queued up to be funded in fiscal year 19, which is the next fiscal process. So our goal here is to continue funding the capital grants program. The Senate is expected to mark up its appropriations bill later today in the subcommittee and the full committee tomorrow. So we'll get a look at exactly what the Senate's doing as far as capital investment grants tomorrow. So that's what we're doing now. The House is actually taking up an 8-bill appropriations package this week, and that includes the transportation bill. We don't expect any cuts to the funding for the capital investment grant program, which is good. There may be some efforts to try and add funding. Not sure that's going to be successful because in order to add funding, you'd have to find cuts elsewhere in the bill, and that's pretty difficult to do at this point. So we continue to monitor. Just on the big picture appropriations front, the federal fiscal year ends on September 30th. The next fiscal year begins October 1st. Congress sometime in the next 2 weeks will pass an appropriations extender bill to keep the government open probably till sometime in December, so they can finish their fiscal year 18 appropriations work. They're a little bit behind schedule right now, so that will happen. And just for point of reference for the public officials, the House will actually consider a bill today to provide almost $8 billion in funding for Hurricane Harvey. The goal is that they're concerned that FEMA could run out of spending authority by the end of the week without action by Congress this week. So they're acting quickly so that they can continue to fund Harvey, but that they also have funds in the bank to provide funding for whatever happens with Irma. And so the House will take that bill up today. The Senate will take it up tomorrow. They may need to resolve some differences on Friday, but their goal is to have it signed into law by Friday or Saturday. So that should at least help out on the emergency front.
Wow.
Does that help, Brad?
That's pretty quick action for the Congress.
Yeah,
When
it is.
surprising.
So is Irma.
I know. Maybe Congress will get around by the time Irma gets here. I don't know.
Any questions?
Nope,
Any-
I'm just shocked they're actually gonna pass something.
No, they haven't done it yet.
I know they haven't done it yet.
Don't get too excited.
Yeah, they haven't done it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And
Is there a recommendation for this, if this committee could take a action to recommend this slate of legislative priorities to the PSTA board?
Motion to move it forward.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Oh, hi.
This is that is
Who's that?
Samantha. Thank you, President.
Samantha, is that you?
Yeah, on the phone. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes.
Okay.
Okay. So that's done. And next?
The other item on our agenda is just to let you know that we are receiving letters of support for our bus rapid transit project. As Harry mentioned, the deadline that our planning department is hopefully busily working on right now is to turn in our application to the federal government for the BRT funding by the end of this week, pending a hurricane. And that will tee us up, that they will review it and then, in theory, be supportive of it going into the president's budget that he announces at the State of the Union in January. January of next year to go into the 19 budget. So right now, I know Harry is working hard, and we've received already received some letters of support for the BRT project. And the goal would be that we would have our congressional delegation write letters of support to the administration to include it in their budget request from our Floridian congressional delegation. So that's what that is. Harry, do you have anything else to say about the letters of support for the BRT?
No, I think, as Brad said, it's kind of a two-step ask that we're asking the delegation to write letters to FTA in support of the application and the project, but also to make sure that the way the federal budget works is they're in the process now of finalizing their fiscal year 19 budget request. So sometime in the next month or so, the agencies will submit to the Office of Management and Budget each of the department's budget recommendations. The OMB then takes a couple weeks and they make recommendations. They say go back and work on this section or eliminate funding for this or whatever, and they send back to the department their edits on the budget request. Then the department fixes it up, and by December they will forward their final recommendations to the president for each of the departments, in this case the Department of Transportation. Our goal is to make sure that the administration is aware of the congressional support for the Small Starts program, but also for this particular project, so it's included on a list of projects that the administration sends to Congress. But the budget request actually comes to Congress in early February, just following the State of the Union. So our goal is to make sure that this project shows up on the FTA list that goes to Congress next February.
That sounds good. Bill? Do you have a?
No.
No?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Hey, Brad, did you mention at the event we were at last week at PSTA, apparently the state is sending a letter in support of the BRT project. Is that correct, Brad? The State Department of Transportation?
That is correct.
Got it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's very helpful with the administration. They like to see these partnerships, and so the fact that the state is stepping up and indicating its support for this project is a good sign. So that's good.
Cassandra just came in and joined us, and she said it's
There we go.
done.
We've got it. It's part of the supporting documentation for our New Starts templates.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, the new district secretary, David Gwynn, from FDOT, is the signatory on the letter. It's very positive. And we're trying to get an MPO, a similar letter from the Ford Pinellas, and Witt said he would do that. I don't know if we've gotten that one yet.
No, not yet.
But that would be good as well.
Yes, it would.
Yep.
Criticus? Send a letter? George
No.
Criticus?
No.
He did something
Did you,
before.
were you saying no, you
I'm
don't?
talking about
George
Or-
Criticus wrote a letter of support for something. I think
Bus and
I
bus
saw-
facilities.
Yes.
What was that?
For the bus and bus facilities grant.
Okay.
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 Future meeting subjects. Next Tuesday, at least for now, is our joint meeting with Hart. It's going to be right here in this room. And really, I think the main discussion on that will be going over the MOU that we signed back about a year ago with Hart and just reviewing the successes that we've had over the last year, accomplishing most of the items on that list. The one exception that we haven't really made too much progress in is on marrying up our legislative priorities exactly together. There was some discussion by the Hart Board last month where they sort of, some of their board members expressed concern that they were in sort of competition with PSTA for state dollars and groused a little bit that they did not receive funds, and we did receive funds from the state legislature last year. Thank you, Senator Latvala and Brandis, from Pinellas County. And so it looks like we will continue to sort of have different state legislative priorities. However, Catherine Egan, their CEO, and I have talked, and one thing we're going to discuss with their board next week would be to work together more closely on this federal agenda. Maybe put in a joint application to the federal government from the Tampa Bay area together as one application from both agencies, and some other things like that. So I think that's what's going to happen at next week's joint PSTA Hart meeting.
Good. Okay. Do we have any other business?
I have a question. There's a TMA meeting tomorrow? No, Friday?
Yeah, is it? I don't know if we've heard of it still on or not.
TMA
We
meeting?
asked about whether it was at AECom, and we said yes, it's at AECom as of right now. I think they'll probably make a decision at the same time the schools make a decision tonight.
Okay.
If the schools are closed, I'm sure it'll be canceled. But all the government offices are supposed to be closed
On Friday?
State
That was-
and
at
also
least that's what
counties.
the- Yeah, state offices.
And I'm thinking PSDA.
If it's going on, I'm wondering if PSTA will be taking any messages to that group this time around, and if there's any legislative implication to some of those messages.
Sure. Or are you talking about a, like a PSTA board position?
Yeah. Because as far as I know, we still have a seat at the table, and will Chairman Rice be there?
Yeah, I know it's on our calendar. I'm imagining that the meeting is not going to happen, but, you know, whenever it does happen, what's the message that you're interested in communicating to them?
Well, the one that I continue to have major interest in is the regional transit feasibility plan and the funding aspect of that from the local side. And the item that I heard recently is, well, maybe we don't need local funding if we get to do a deal like Orlando did with Sunrail, where DOT agreed to fund the full 50% and then after 7 years, then the system would be operated by the locals fully without requiring state support. And it's kind of like, well, we have to get that memorandum of understanding through our local 24 municipalities in this county, and it just seems like we've missed the concept of the local funding of that regional feasibility plan, and we haven't involved the public in really understanding what we're trying to do there, what the goal of the plan is. They had a meeting at, where was it, last week? Was it here? It was here, right? And they showed the preferred route. They had some routes that you put stickers on to vote for, and also voted for the mode, I think, right? And the one that I saw got the most stickers was the route from here to, from St. Pete through the Gateway area, through West Shore to Tampa and to USF. And my personal opinion is that's probably the route that would have the most ridership, but how would it have more success in getting support in Pinellas if it only went from St. Pete to Tampa rather than going to USF as well? Because that puts more of the investment in Hillsborough County, although Hillsborough County has more residents. I mean, it just seems like we're not strategically thinking through the funding for this project that DOT is spending $1 million to come up with a plan that can be federally funded, not necessarily locally funded. So I think I've mentioned that before, and I won't have to stop there, Madam Chair.
Well, I just wanted to offer that it sounds distinctly like Homerton funding 25 years ago.
Homerton?
Mm-hmm. And we're still struggling with it today because it was meant to alleviate east-west traffic. This only does north-south. So we're right back.
The route where he's on, that.
The route that you're talking about, Bill, is north-south for
Yeah.
Pinellas County. And 25 years ago, we were all fighting about east-west traffic, and we still are today.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it needs some major thought in what's going to happen with it.
Well,
And if Pinellas County is going to vote on it,
that meeting that we both attended last week, that was held here for the Regional Transit Study, where that route was preferred by the attendees. was the third of 3 public engagement activities that the FDOT has sponsored for the project. One in Pasco, one in Hillsborough, and that was the Pinellas one. And I presume that they will provide a summary of the total feedback. I would not imagine at this TMA meeting Friday, but sometime in the future. But when it comes time prior to the submission of the final report of that premium trend study, we can come up with a PSTA board position, maybe, on what we think of it. Like, number one, we could make a statement, don't look to us to pay for it. Could provide the local share, because we have our money invested in this local bus system, or something like that.
I'm sure Doug would like to see a bus every now and then, north of,
I've seen them when I'm down on Ulmerton.
We could say we fully endorse a free system, or free to us locals, like Orlando had.
What I've seen other cities do is if they do a regional system like Sound Transit, they have a regional funding source for the regional components of that system. But nobody's talking about that because they're so concerned about it, particularly before the penny for Pinellas vote gets through. So, which is coming up pretty close, pretty soon.
yes, it is.
It is.
Okay, well, does anyone have anything further? Brad?
Well, I will see you all, hopefully, or some of you tonight, again. And it'll be the final time I have to see you this week, when we have our first of 2 budget hearings. I saw that our chair, Darden Rice, sent an email to our state representative, Ben Diamond, after I guess she got a notice from her attorneys at the city of St. Petersburg that these budget hearings, because St. Petersburg has one tomorrow and the PSTA one is tonight, cannot be postponed or canceled due to the hurricane.
Oh, really?
And that's a concern to her. So she's she's asking the state representative to maybe look at changing that law. That maybe a budget hearing might be able to be
Well,
canceled.
I mean, to that point, if
no one comes.
no one shows up, you don't have a quorum, it's a dead issue anyway, so.
Well,
Or even if the citizens
the board
don't
has
come.
to get here.
Huh?
The board has to get here and have a
Right.
quorum.
That's what I mean, so if they
But-
can't get here and you don't have a quorum, you didn't cancel it, it just didn't happen, you know?
Or does it have to be
Yeah,
rescheduled?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Well, there's that, and then if it's a public hearing, for citizens and they can't come, or it's hard for them to come, what's the value?
Yeah, we put them in risk of their life to come to, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
You're putting your,
No, I said, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, yeah, I'm gonna put my life at risk to come to a budget meeting.
Right.
No.
No.
for PSTA, probably not.
I'm not.
That might be a future legislative thing that we might support.
And I have people making phone calls to please stay after 6 o'clock so they can pick up their feed and hay and supplies for all of their animals.
Yeah.
After they get off work today. So,
Well, no, when are your public hearings? Are they this week?
Who, us?
Yeah.
Well, we
for
just
your
had a
city.
council meeting Tuesday, last night.
It was a budget hearing?
No, we didn't, no, we've already done our first budget hearing.
and I have a council meeting tomorrow night.
We
Ours
can-
has been canceled.
Huh?
Ours was canceled.
Yours is
Oh,
canceled?
it was canceled.
We're scheduled to have one Thursday night. I think we'll have it Thursday. Because we have to implement some
Yeah, we did our.
emergency,
We did a resolution last night for our budget,
resolutions
yeah, so.
we somehow been negligent in re-upping our contract for debris removal after a storm. Oh, well, we better get that done. Yes. Just-
So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I can't second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
It's been great having this wonderful meeting with my closest friends,
Yeah.
Samantha on the line.
I think she left us a while.
Now what do I do for the next 2.5 hours?
Well, I'm going.
Get more
for the water.
sandbags.
You can go to the store and help us put hay in
That's what I'm
people's
doing too.